Completely respect for Zazas, who last time around destroyed Team Property. So can completely understand why that ban's coming out, and definitely one I would agree with. Potential Sona and Vi, they've just been locked in.
Very interesting to see where it goes. I mean, that Vi pick was quick. She's a very strong jungler, very good on this patch, and very good on the live patch too, on 3.14. Some new build orders coming out, putting it more useful. But now that it's been left open, Jankos very quickly picked up that Renekton, had that locked on in. Overpower grabbing Selva is Caitlyn again. KMT got these tried and true champions there, happy to go with it. We saw a lot of Ziggs from DX Alchemist on Dignitas UK in this last weekend on the Spring Promotion Qualifier. And since his changes, they were a long time ago, they were a couple of patches back, but teams are just now starting to give him a new try and bring him in. With the changes to the satchel charge, with the extra distance that you can now leap, the changes to his E, to his minefield, allowing you to farm a lot easier. Ziggs just sitting in that middle lane and farming, and then throwing an ultimate from halfway across the map into top or bottom lanes or whoever needs help can really turn the tides of some fights and turn the tides of some games. And we've seen some very impressive Ziggs play over the last couple of weeks, so I'm really intrigued to see what Zivis does with this.
Yeah, and this is something we've been seeing a lot in the NA scene as well, where players like Prolly have been saying that you have to ban Ziggs, and he's probably going to be changed very, very shortly, hit with a nerf bat pretty hard. So, as you say, it's a lot of poke in lane with his short fuse passive that scales off AP. And on top of that, the amount of presence in fights, especially when you consider they have the crescendo. So you land the crescendo into the Mega Inferno Bomb, that's a lot of burst damage.
On top of that, of course, you've got Varus ultimate too,
yeah.
Which now it is quite easily, I think, the most missed ultimate in the LCS. It's very, very obvious when you see that tentacle fly off into nothingness and not anything. But when it lands with the Sona ult in conjunction, that really locks people down in that side space for a very long amount of time. So it's an interesting idea here from Tricked. It's a nice plan. Whether they can execute it, whether they can do it properly, we'll have to wait and see. Nisbeth is waiting on his last pick. We're still looking for a top laner to go up against Jankos. In on Riven. Now here's an interesting thing. Riven has been played a lot in the middle lane by a lot of teams. Now, that would mean that they're switching up Ziggs and putting him against Renekton somewhere. Would mean some crazy switch there. Not the best of matchups for him, though. So Riven against Renekton, very tight in those early couple of levels in the top lane, in the solo lanes, providing they end up in that matchup. But with a jungler like Lee Sin coming to play the game, that early part of the game, I've got to give over towards KMT, should we see that jungler interaction and that 2v2.
How do you feel about the bot lane here? With Varus and Sona, you've already mentioned before the ultimate, so a level 6 Chain of Corruption crescendo is devastating if you can land it. And the crescendo almost gives a heat-seeking property to the Chain of Corruption. It's very difficult to miss. But Thresh and Caitlyn, if the death sentence can land on Sona, that is going to be so much burst damage for Sona to have to live through.
Yeah, if Sona gets focused down, the chances of her coming out the other side of it are very, very low, especially if Vanda's here keeping that ignite. That burst damage will be way too much for her. But if they grab it onto perhaps Varus, he's got a little bit more survivability, he's got that barrier. Once he comes out the other side of it and turns that fight onto him, Sona Varus has a lot more damage than Caitlyn does. So providing she isn't mobile enough, and providing she doesn't get enough distance between herself and Varus, so Caitlyn's going to have quite a tough time.
Yeah, completely agreed. So we do see both teams coming out. Important to mention that Renekton, as you actually mentioned previously, was not banned in the last game and was first picked this time around. So Zazas, you don't give him the Rumble, but instead you give him his second go-to champion, Renekton, which he's so powerful with.
Yeah, so top lane's going to be a challenge, but I mean, I mentioned Riven is very good early. She does have a lot of these qualities that works very well against Renekton. He can't just sit there and farm against her as he can against someone like Shen, perhaps, when they do just end up butting heads and turning away and butting heads and turning away. So there's going to be a little bit more action in that lane, but it's more about a case of who's going to come down and really make an impact for their team after that lane in phase. Riven, that mid-game strength is incredibly powerful. I mean, she rushes something like a Tiamat or a Hyder or a Bloodthirster. She's going to come down and start destroying the early team fights. Those dragon fights that we saw in the early part of last game, perhaps, if there was a Riven involved in that, she would be about as strong as that Aatrox was. She would have snowballed very, very hard picking up those kills. If they can do the same thing here with Riven, then Tricks are going to look very good. If Renekton comes down and gets those couple of kills, he doesn't snowball quite as hard. He becomes, later on, just a big immovable object, shred resists, and just is generally a little bit annoying. Riven outputs a massive amount of damage and is a serious force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, so we are going to be jumping onto the Rift here. It looks as though the blue team are going to be invading on the red, just putting down some wards. Pretty much a carbon copy of what we saw last time around, where both teams go into each other's jungle, put down some wards, and that's going to give them all the information they need on the jungle pathing. So it allows the freedom of the players to know, okay, the jungle is probably top, so we can be a bit more aggressive at bot.
We did see Sona hanging around a little bit behind her team. Didn't actually play... Oh, she did, sorry. They were standing on it. Thresh was standing on the ward that was placed at their red buff. So Tricked know that KMT were in there. They know KMT had placed these 3 wards, just like they did in the previous game. And now they're trying to set a trap for them. They're waiting for someone to come around and try and take this red buff. As it is, it's not happening. They now know this after placing a couple of their own wards. And I suspect they may just take it away themselves.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Just the one player recalling, which will be the top laner of Riven. So it's going to be Ziggs in mid up against Nidalee. But as you said before, potential lane switch-ups. And the fact that the AD and Thresh are both leashing blue, I mean, the clue's already there. They're going to be taking it on 1v2. Yeah,
so we're going to see Thresh and Caitlyn up top now against Riven, which is a horrible lane for her, to be honest, because of the range, because she has to get so close up with her foot being melee. She doesn't have the same kind of sustain that Renekton does. She doesn't have that Cull and Meek passive that he's got. Now, if she does get that shield early, she's got a very spammable, quite healthy shield to help her CS. So providing that she uses that wisely, should work out quite nicely for her indeed. But we'll have to see exactly how that lane plays out. And with Lee Sin here, heading in towards that red buff and to steal that away now that they know his is gone, that could spell trouble for Riven, because it means he's going to get that, and he's going to get that level 3 pretty early, and then be very close to that top lane and a potential 3-man dive.
Yeah, definitely the case, but he's going to be picking up his red first. Doris is playing pretty passive, doesn't want to overextend and get himself caught in a really bad position. And obviously Renekton in this 1 versus 2 is going to have a few problems here, Pank. You know, he's not able to really get any CS until it's underneath his tower, in which case he's just going to get poked down from Varus and Sona. They've got pretty long range.
Yeah, but I mean, that's standard 2v1 stuff. That's what he's to be expecting. We do see a very quick recall from Vikes. They realize they haven't seen Lee Sin in any of the wards on the bottom half of his jungle at all. So he must still be around the top side. Of course, they saw him take the red buff from the ward they placed there. So they knew he was on the top side of the map. They knew he's hovering on that top lane. So Vi immediately recalled after doing her blue buff, hitting that level 3, goes towards that top lane to help Vi out and make sure she's there in time to stop that 3v1 dive. What they don't know, that dive is no longer coming. Lee Sin's back to his wolf camp and is carrying on farming comfortably. But now with Vi here on the tower, it does give Riven a chance to pick up the early CS. And as you can see from the minor numbers, she's starting to edge ahead from Renekton.
There's a lot of comfort picks as well here from KMT, though, because Jankos is known for his Lee Sin play. We've seen time and time again in the EOS Challenger Series, for example, Overpower goes to that Nidalee and lands javelins all day long. So KMT are playing from a comfortable position here. They've not really been banned out.
Next pick up his first CS. Lee Sin does come in, lands a quick Sonic Wave Resonating Strike combo into Sona, but will immediately back away for risk of further damage to himself. But he's there now, he's helping Renekton pick up some CS. But still, that top lane going ever so slightly further in Tricked favor, and this minor gold lead is kind of showing it. Mid lane, however, Ziggs is doing his thing, and he's starting to really outfarm Nidalee and push her into an under turret. She's going to have a slight issue with that until she hits level 6, because she hasn't got the same kind of wave clear that Ziggs does, and he's going to really start to punish her, especially while he can see Lee Sin in other lanes and know that he's safe from ganks and does not have to fear Lee coming out of the bushes. He can really start to pressure Nidalee and keep her under that tower.
Yeah, so speaking of jungle presence, Jankos is just staying bot lane, wants to allow Renekton to get some free farm, some XP as well, and you're just seeing Ziv as much as he can just harassing with the short fuse, and that's one of the main strengths of Ziggs right now, that he is a real bully in the early game. So much poke damage, so much range, they're actually be engaging at top.
We do see Vander getting knocked back from that Vault Breaker on Vi, but they cannot take that any further. A quick hook does land to return on Doris, and while they're not going to chase that much further in, that is a lot of damage that Doris could have avoided just by missing that hook.
Yeah, very true. And
I can't say Doris with a straight face. I think it's like some 80-year-old woman behind the PC.
Just rocking it out. Bot lane, though. Crystallin's in a really bad position as the Ignite comes down, but he's going to be okay. I thought for a millisecond there his days were numbered, but not to be.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't have that flash, then he was more than certainly dead, but managing to get over the two of them back under his turret to the safety of Sona really helped him out, but he's got to win his toes now. That combination is there. There is a lot of damage in Lee Sin Renekton in these earlier levels, and they know that Lee Sin is hovering around the area quite a bit, so he's got to win his toes and cannot get caught out like that again.
He does, however, still have barrier. So if for some reason he does get caught, he should be okay, provided that it's not all the way down towards the enemy's tower. They don't have level 6 yet, though, which is a lot of disengage power from both the Chain of Corruptions and Crescendo, so he does have to be very careful. And this could definitely whet the appetite of Jankos, who thinks, okay, if I land a really good Q and I engage, we can actually pick up First Blood, because 6 minutes through, we still had really nothing too big going on.
No, again, it's been a little bit passive. It's been helping these top laners, these solo laners out. As a result, Renekton and Lee Sin now actually have more CS than Vi and Rivens. They did a better job of picking up the creeps while they were down there in that lane. Doris is still trying to dodge away from the hooks and the lanterns that are coming in her direction, but Vi's back to farming. Vi's going to hit 6 very, very shortly. And then I'd like to try and see her perhaps play with... Oh, never mind. I was going to say play something mid lane before that 6 on Riven. Nidalee, but it's not there. Instead, I'd like to see her go top lane, pressure onto Celeber perhaps, and try and blow the flash on him like they've lost it on Varus. Without that flash, Caitlyn is very exposed to just being jumped on by Riven and soloed down when, say, perhaps Thresh is out warding or recalls and leaves her alone for a little while. Instead, though, Varus is being pushed.
Yeah, and he's had to use his barrier. Remember, Flash was burnt already. Can he actually go back here onto Zaz's? Here comes Nisbeth with the Ignite as well, but not quite fast enough. So the First Blood is going to be going into the hands of Lee Sin and, of course, KMT.
I was going to say, now that Flash is down, we did expect Lee and Renekton to really abuse it and make the most of it. Lee backed up into the jungle, got himself level 6, and then came down to make the most of it. In doing so, it has opened up the blue buff now that they know he's there, but in fact, Lily's trying to all in Ziggs.
Well, that's interesting because Zivs is a very slippery Ziggs right now. Satchel charge and also burned the flash, but barrier was instantly used from Nidalee, I believe.
Yeah, it was. Straight away, as she was on top of that minefield, she wanted to block as much of that initial burst. I mean, you just know the law that says you have to use barrier just before you die.
Oh, yeah.
So why not? I mean, use it early on, block all the initial bursts, because that's when obviously the cooldowns are up. That's when Ziggs is going to blow everything he can on you. Then have as much health left over afterwards as you finish. And now after that fight, she's got even more health left rather than just that last little sliver that she blocked when the barrier ran out. She's got all of it. So it's smarter to use it early if you know that damage is definitely coming. Obviously, if you try and preempt it and they don't use it at all, then you're in trouble. But she knew it was there. She jumped onto the minefield. She knew she was about to take some, so you pop the barrier. Showing bottom, getting that first blood from Lee Sin did, at that timing, being 7 minutes 10, tell Vi that blue buff was literally about to respawn and Lee Sin was nowhere to deal with it. So she did go straight in there and take that blue away, got her own red as well. Lee Sin's got his own red this time around, but the blue is still up for Tricked, and if that gets into the hands of Ziggs, then Nidalee's about to have a very bad day.
Yeah, very true. Nidalee needs the blue buff for the cooldown reduction for javelins and, of course, the mana regen as well. But what I would say is that little engage in mid, I have to say, I think favours Nidalee because Nidalee has Cougar form, so the flash onto Ziggs, who no longer has a flash himself, and then on top of that, Ziggs just has the Ignite. Now, he's got a lot of burst damage, but if Nidalee can land a couple javelins, she can go all in on Ziggs, and there's not a great deal he can do about it, especially if his satchel charge is on cooldown.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's going to have to play very, very tight with that satchel charge, and I don't imagine him to use it at all unless it is a form of escape because of how long the cooldown is and how little the damage is. It's not good for CSing or for harassing, really. So he should have it up almost all the time, but it's a case of using it at that right moment, a case of using it when he's in need of it, like possibly now.
Yeah, minefield goes down. Jankos is going to be Dragon's Raging, then connecting the Qs, but that is a beautiful play right there from Zivish. Now going to be turning this one back around, picks up the kill, but a beautiful javelin from Nidalee. Long range will be picking up the pieces.
Yeah, he kept running in the straight direction. He might have got away from that, but as soon as he heard the call from Sona saying spear coming, he moved and dodged back into the path of the spear. Doris trying to stay alive under turret. It's going to be fine for now, but he's taking a lot more harassment damage. Ooh, that red buff on Nidalee. Very, very painful if you're in auto-attack range. And you, of course, then leap in with the Cougar form to execute, so Trashy has to get back under his own turret with plenty of time to spare. But even though it's 2 for 2, the first blood did go over to KMT, and in actual fact, Doris may have just written his death warrant.
Yeah, Doris is going to be going down. Ignite was popped, and the box as well. And importantly, though, Celeber picked up the kill. So the AD carry, Caitlyn, once again, carbon copy of the first game, starting off very well.
And he picked up the turret just beforehand as well. So the map control, the global gold, and the kill now going over to Celeber. Overpower, looking now to try and steal this blue buff away. Sona there, though, more than enough deterrent just to keep an eye on things and watch as the rest of the team closes in. KMT keeping pressure on this tier 2 turret as they know there's going to be lots of members of Trick down here taking care of this blue. He does actually go over onto Trashy. He smited it to make sure that no one on KMT got it. So, okay, yes, Overpower didn't get it himself, but Trick didn't get it either. Sorry, Zivis didn't get it either. So it keeps it away from his lane opponent.
So he doesn't have to worry about that brutal blue buff Ziggs, which everyone loathes to play against. It is absolutely terrifying when the bouncing bombs are coming in consistently and suddenly your health bar is just whittling down to about a quarter. Trashy has been caught here, but the Flame will be missing and he'll get back just fine.
No problem there. I mean, even if he got caught, at least him was there. It would have been a fair bit of damage, but it would have been... In fact, maybe with the Caitlyn ult, they could have finished him off. So yeah, it's a good dodge to make for sure. And of course, free damage is never a good thing to take. You see Lee Sin recalling in the edge of this map. Ziggs does spot him and taunts him, but he may have just bitten off more than he can chew. The Sonic Wave lands, the resonating strikes there. He's going to try and kick him back out, but he just hits him sideways instead. Tankos takes a little bit too much turret damage, but Zivis is now incredibly low after that spear. Lee wanted to go and execute him with that Sonic Wave strike again, but Vi, thankfully, had come down from the top lane, kept an eye. No, he landed the Sonic Wave! Directed camera a little bit below, but he did manage to come back across as Vi was no longer blocking it. Lands the wave and executes Ziggs. Just sloppy little things here from Trick. That and the fact the way that Riven died in the top lane to Caitlyn beforehand. Just recalling in places that were obvious, recalling in easy hooks, recalling in dangerous positions when you know the enemy's around and you're on low health. Just giving these free kills to KMT.
And obviously the small mistakes build up to a bigger gap, a bigger gaping hole, a bigger gaping wound in your armor. So going forward with the kills they've given away, going into the next dragon fight potentially, whenever objectives start to fall down, you've got to say that KMT are coming out here way ahead. Because not only are they gold ahead, but they've got the gold in the right places. They've got a strong Nidalee, they've got a strong Lee Sin early game. And again, Bloodthirster for Celiva before the 12-minute mark is just brutal.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing there for Zivis too is he had to back up from tower because he took a lot of damage. So he was fighting there and lost some creeps. Then he started recalling and he lost another wave of creeps. Then Lee Sin came in and killed him, so he lost another wave of creeps. And then as he ran back to lane, he lost another one. He lost so much just because he died there instead of recalling, or he tried to recall in a city place. Instead of just running back past the turret a little bit further and then recalling out, he lost lots more experience in gold that, well, now Nidalee, level 10 to his level 9, is going to make the most of. If she hits level 11, and lands the right spear, she will easily be able to leap straight in on top of him.
The Cougar form, absolutely. So definitely one to watch out for here as the middle goes on, and that's not even mentioning the blue buff on Italy as well. So it just gets even worse for Zivic as those javelins are going to be flying in plenty. Some pings down bot lane, a bit of ward coverage around Dragon, so probably not going to be kicking off just yet. But this is allowing Zazas to just push top again. Very similar to first game. You give him a chance, he'll just split push you to death.
You did see Lee Sin in there taking away the red buff from Trick. And had the time, he had more than enough space because there was no one out on the map for Trick to deal with him. And while they knew it was there, he was standing on a ward. There's nothing they could do with it. Vi was too far afield. And Ziggs is a little way behind and having trouble with Nidalee. And now he may be having trouble with Lee Sin as well. Watch the Sonic Wave, but the spear's going to land. And Riven being pressured so hardcore by Renekton in that tier 2 in the top lane has no help. No one can come and help him because all the other lanes are struggling as is.
Exactly, that's the thing. Because Nidalee is punishing Ziggs so hard, Vi has to stay mid. And that's allowing, again, Renekton and Zazas to just push top. And even though Riven is behind and struggling with 70 CS right now, and not necessarily looking too strong from Doris, who's already falling behind on XP as well, nothing can happen. Mid lane, though, Packy, and engage.
They are trying to use that long-range ultimate combo from Ziggs just to clean out the waves while you lock someone in turret range with CC. This time they focused on Lee Sin, tried to knock him up under tower and help the turret damage finish him off. He's just a little bit too tanky. He's got that Sight Stone mixed in amongst there and, well, almost enough to complete it and upgrade it. That gives him a lot of health. And well, Vi, Ziggs and the turret didn't have enough damage to finish him off, but wow, Overpower had a lot of damage at that execute. Obviously it does extra based on percentage health missing and the AP, and with that quick flash to get in range, he was able to execute Ziggs.
That was so well calculated, burning both summoner spells, but knowing he had enough raw damage to take Ziggs down. Because if Ziggs had survived with a slither of health, there could have been some egg on the face there, because you've burnt both summoners to claim the kill that you don't manage to get. So really nice play in a live environment. Remember, these guys are on stage right now, so to make these calm decisions with clarity is really impressive. Doris at top lane, though, it's not looking too good for him.
Taking a little bit more damage from Renekton, just enough to keep him low and stop him coming down to stop this dragon attempt from the rest of KMT. The pink ward is there from Trix, but it doesn't matter. KMT are going in there at opportunities when Tricked have just based. Their bottom lane was not in the map when they started that Drake. When Vi was dealing with the mid lane because Ziggs was too busy being dead. It's just nowhere that KMT can really... the Tricked can really contest any of these KMT plays, even though they have vision and even though that it's going on, there's just no movement for them.
Yeah, and you can start to see that they're making the opposition jungle their own now. Tricked are very claustrophobic in how they're feeling. Zivis is being poked down from Overpower and Big Engage, kicking off box and Crescendo down. Trashy's been jumped on from Jankos' Lee Sin. That's going to be a kill on Celiva. Question now, can they even up the odds? Yes, they can. Mega Inferno Bomb will not be landing, but here comes Overpower from the side. One good arrow, one good javelin, I should say, would finish off Nisbeth, but it's not going to happen. Ace in the hole was used in the process.
Yeah, and sorry, Cameron, thanks to that ward that was placed around the... Oh, it wasn't a ward, sorry, he just predicted it and expected it to be coming, so he dodged off sideways, but Riven couldn't come down to join that one. It was a straight up 4v4, and well, we saw Varusol get missed again. Mentioned that tentacle flying past and not landing on anything. The box was incredibly well placed, meaning that anyone on Trick that wanted to touch either Celiva or even Nidalee at that start of the fight had to go through the box, had to get them slowed up completely, and Lee Sin was there to really jump on top of them and start applying the pain while Celiva picked them off from a distance.
Yeah, and still 2-0 in terms of objectives on towers to KMT, and you can see from the positioning right now across the board from Trick, they're in no position to answer this one back. They're constantly being forced back onto their own towers. Soon to be 3 towers potentially, this mid one's below 50% hit points.
Nidalee keeping that pressure up. Now has a little bit of support from Thresh, but just passing through to clean some wards, probably clean out the Baron pit just because why not? They can get control of that half of the map, get control of that area, and they can push home that advantage. Do see Lee Sin again in that mid lane helping clear the wave, just showing his face, keeping the pressure up, making sure Ziggs is on his toes and making his way straight into the opposition jungle off the bat. Nisbeth picked himself up an Oracle, which he needs to do. They need to get control of their own jungle back. They need to kill some of these wards that KMT have put down. But in doing so, he's put himself so far behind. I mean, he's got the same items here as Thresh, but he's a level behind. He's had less time in lane. There's already been so many walls placed by Vander. You can see on the gold count 2.7k to Sona to 2.8k. Actually, never mind, I lied completely. That surprised me at how close those two are.
Mid lane though, you do have Jankos being caught out of position. Will be Dragons raging away Trash. He wants none of that. Here comes Doris with the ult himself, not going to be landing. So quite a flirtatious start there, but nothing really sticking.
Considering there's 2 turrets down on KMT's side, considering there's 2 assists to 1, I mean, yes, there's a kill there on Sona, so that's the 300 gold from the turrets kind of equalized out, but it's still doing quite well for Nisbeth to keep up in that count. We do in fact see Lee Sin going straight in onto Zivith though, and the hook lands on Nisbeth.
Oh, Nisbeth should be 6 foot under hit, but here comes the Mega Inferno Bomb, pushing the back. Crescendo lands on 2. Beautiful play there. Can Jankos finish this one off? It's looking likely as he slows down with the E. Going to be picking up the pieces. Overpower uses the barrier to survive, and meanwhile at the bot lane we have another kill going down with Sona. All hell's just broke loose as we have fights in every single lane across the board, and as a result, that's a 3-for-1 trade globally. Could potentially be worse though.
We still might be tricked as Doris is fighting Axis under turret. Nice backs on out of there as well, but Doris is incredibly low, and once Axis gets a bit more fury up, perhaps the next creep wave, Doris needs to be careful, so he's got to go back and heal now. He's not like home, he's not even got boots, not even got boots to home guard with, so he's going to be on that fountain for a little while, and we'll lose a majority of that creep wave. We did see Celiva though, while he died to Chrysland, he was 2v1ing Varus and Vi for a while in that bottom half of the map, so Celiva looking incredibly strong, 3-1 with, again, the same items as before. Helping clean waves and just push straight through the map. And
just be brutal to play against. And something else that we didn't mention, because there was so much action, so many kills, was 5 towers have now fallen. KMT have 5-0 on objectives. That is brutal, because the map presence, the map domination now from KMT is going to allow them to snowball even harder, steal away the buff, steal away blues and reds whenever they so choose. And I'm already seeing it being very difficult for Trick to pull themselves back in this game.
Definitely. Overpower goes and solos himself down on that blue buff this time around. Trick still got that Oracles up on Nisbeth, of course, trying to get as much vision of their jungle back as possible, but every time he's going in, every time he's trying these things, other parts of the map are getting pressured, other people are dying because they don't have the support there, or he's getting caught out of position himself. This time, Caitlyn and Renekton pushing bottom and top lanes respectively, which before got them both tier 2 turrets. This time there's no tier 2 turrets, so, well, KMT sending Thresh over to support with Oracles to clear the wards out, but almost five members of Tricked are now locked into this middle lane, which has allowed Caitlyn to get all the way up to that inhibitor turret uncontested.
So Selov is just taking over from Zaz's last game. It's like Zaz's was smashing down towers as Aatrox, and now Selov on Caitlyn, who, as you said, has great pushing power with the Static Shiv and the Bloodthirster, is just going to be rinsing and repeating, and it's very difficult. In fact, this could actually be a kill. Onto Chrisland, Ace in the Hole comes through. Beautiful combo, everything landing on Varus.
That beautiful 90 caliber net build over Peacemaker range combo allows him to land the damage while still getting out of the turret range to then cast his ultimate. And because there was no one else close from Trick, they couldn't deal with it. Jankos, however, may have bitten off more than he could chew by staying under that turret for so long.
Certainly did, but they did get the tower. So even though they lost at Lee Sin, not potentially too bad. That being said, if they re-engage this and get some more kills, it could very well be a bad case, as Vanda will be falling to Trashy. Now going to be re-engaging. Nidalee takes down Ziggs, and now they're hungry after that Sona kill, who will be flashing away. Overpower chasing, throwing in the Javelin, finishes the double kill with the auto attack.
With now inhibitor exposed, KMT just going to keep that pressure up, keep pushing through. While Varus is there, while Vi is healing, while Riven is in the top lane, there's still nothing they can do to stop that. They just have to let it go through. With bottom inhibitor down at 21 minutes, world is their oyster as far as KMT are concerned. They can go anywhere they want on that map now. All the lanes are going to push in because this is pre-inhibitor changes. Bottom lane's going to have super creeps in it. The Baron half of the map, the top half of the map, the red buff, that top tier 3 turret that has already been punished and been pressured by Renekton is probably going to be their next target or their next focus. Maybe this mid-tier 2 inhibitor, mid-tier 2 turret, simply because of how open the map is to them now. They will just stroll past, easily pick that up with a couple of auto attacks from Selava and Nidalee, and then rotate around. I suspect to join Renekton.
And all your dragons are belong to us is KMT's motto, because they can't even get close to dragon. Let's face it, they go ahead and face check dragon, they're going to get aced, they're probably going to lose the game. But you hit the nose, you hit the, on the button I should say, hit the nose, nice one. That with the bottom inhibitor being dead, Baron is now much more viable for KMT, because the super mini is going to keep them busy, but that's going to be Vanda getting caught.
He's going to get nuked down with both the ultimates from Chrisland and Trashy comboed up to lock him in place. Did have Zivis trying to fight Lee on the entire time. Zivis came off on the backside of that AP carry, losing out to Lee Sin in the jungle, which, yes, they managed to kill off Vanda. They killed off the support. But so what? What did they get from that? They didn't gain anything. They didn't get an objective. They got a little bit of gold, fine, but they blew 2 ultimates to get it. And, well, KMT have done a great job at pressuring the map and making the most of these advantageous situations. And now they know those ultimates are down. They can probably still put quite a lot of pressure in. And as you can see, they're pushing onto the mid lane. They knew Vi and Riven were top. They saw them with Renekton. Now trying to get this turret with these 2 members.
And you said this in game number 1 as well, that Nidalee to start with is not going to have the massive amounts of burst, but as the game progresses, will become a terror. We've reached that stage. Rabadon's Death Cap, Seraph's Embrace, and
leap in and why people face off in Cougar form, but those spears are where it's really would have been dead. There is a lot of damage on Selava, as Jankos just decides to show us by executing Sona over the wall with Selava's help.
But that's the thing, even though they didn't get the kill on Zivis, they did enough damage to force him back, and in the 4 versus 5, there's simply nothing Trick can do. So they lose another tower, and they end up losing Sona. So now they can siege the middle inhib, and at the same time, super minis are pushing down bottom.
Exactly, super minis pushing down bottom. KMT in this mid lane pressuring onto Tricked. Tricked, who are lacking players already. That spear lands straight in Chrisland's face, taking him low. The Hush comes over from Thresh, nothing they can do. But as the creeps arrive, Doris has to go out and deal with the super creeps. Not the greatest of timings, gives a completely free turret to KMT.
Desperation engage, I have to feel, as the final curtain comes down. Trashy is getting absolutely obliterated. They've got the shutdown on Nidalee, but can they do anything off the back of it? Doesn't look likely. That's a 2-for-1 trade, beautiful crescendo coming through, but just delaying the inevitable, as now Ziggs will be next to fall. That's a 3-for-1 trade. Zazas could be falling. In fact, he's going to manage to survive, but they're going to take the middle inhib after this, and I honestly think this game's already done. I want to be an optimist, Panky, but the stats don't lie.
It is. The stats don't lie. The gold advantage is there. 2 inhibitors down. You do not come from back from that unless you are some kind of crazy Dreamhack champion like CL something.
Yeah.
Someone did it at Dreamhack. It's
once upon a time.
Once upon a time they did. But there, with Caitlyn and Lee Sin executing the final remaining member of Trick in the top half of the map using that snipe, They are going to expose the Nexus, finish off the Nexus turrets themselves. Televa just standing there and taking Trashy's damage, doesn't care about it, is just happy to sit there and start firing onto the Nexus. Does finish it off, does round out the game in 25 minutes, very, very quickly and ultimately. But KMT, well, Property said, and we had that interview, saying they are the favourites to take it. He thinks they're stronger than SK, and KMT, well, they're trying to prove it to us.
Exactly. It's almost like they heard and they went, yeah, we'll prove you right. Why not? Cyrus was here last time after being pretty much battered from Zaz's at the top lane.